The river surged restlessly, as it always did, its currents full of whispers. A few ripples danced against the bank, but no one dared listen. The Nile was both life and danger to the village. Beneath its surface, unknown forces moved, and tonight it seemed to beckon. At the water's edge, a figure stood alone, Naya. Her dark eyes scanned the churning waters, her gaze unbroken. She had always been drawn to the river. Some said it was the blood of their ancestors that called her, but others feared what that blood could hide. She stepped closer. "What do you hold, old river?" she murmured, a smile playing at the corner of her lips. Her words, soft and barely audible, were not a question, but an invitation. The river responded with a low murmur, its voice hidden in the noise of the evening. It was as though the water had heard her, or perhaps it had always been waiting. Nia stood there every evening, daring the silence, daring the secrets. Her curiosity was not like the others, more than a fascination, it was a hunger. She had felt it for as long as she could remember, a pull that no warning could sever. Her village, steeped in old traditions, had always whispered about the river's power. But Nia's spirit could not be held back by fear. "The river is no enemy," she had told the others, her voice steady, though her hands trembled beneath her skin. "It only speaks to those who listen." She was known for defying the elders, for testing the invisible threads that held the world in balance. "What if it has answers?" she would ask, ignoring the heavy stares of those who feared what they did not understand. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long, the water stirred. It was not the wind or the birds that spoke, but the river itself, a voice, soft but clear. "Nia." Her heart skipped a beat. She had heard it, faint and secretive, just like the old stories. The river called her name again. This time it was not just the current, it was something deeper. The waters whispered of things only she could understand, things that tied her to the very heart of the river. "Nia." The voice hummed in her chest. She moved closer, her feet sinking into the soft mud, the pull undeniable. "Stay away from the river, child," the voice of the elder rang out. His hand, weathered with age and wisdom, reached to stop her. "It is not your friend." The others gathered, their faces set with the seriousness of ancient knowledge. "The river speaks to many, but it calls only the chosen, and those who answer are never seen again." Nia turned to them, her brow furrowed. "The river does not call me to harm me." "But you do not understand," the elder said, his voice a warning. "Long ago the river cursed those who listened too deeply. They are taken, lost to the waters, bound to the spirit that rules the river's heart." She shook her head. "I am not afraid." "You should be," another elder muttered, but Nia was already moving, determined. "The river has its own will," he warned, "and no one can control it." Without another word, Nia stepped into the river, her feet sinking into the dark water. She felt a strange tug, a pulse that drew her further in. Then the earth trembled. The water roared, a deep, vibrating force. The ground beneath her feet quaked as if the river itself was alive, hungry. Naya gasped, trying to break free, but the river grasped her tighter. Her body was pulled in, not by force, but by will. The very essence of the Nile wrapped around her, pulling her down into its depths. She screamed, but the water swallowed her voice. The village could only watch, frozen, as she vanished into the dark currents. Just as swiftly as it had begun, the tremor stopped. The river lay still again, its surface smooth, as if nothing had ever happened. The village held its breath. Was it over? Had the river taken Nia? Or was she somewhere, lost to the depths, her fate sealed by the forces that ran deeper than they could understand? Panic spread like wildfire. Some ran to the water's edge, shouting her name. Others stood in place, staring in disbelief. The elders argued amongst themselves. Some insisted that Nia had been claimed by the river spirit. Others, fearful, believed it was the curse that had taken her. "You saw her," one villager shouted. "She was taken, swallowed by the river." "No," another replied. "The river doesn't take without reason. It was no accident." But no one knew. No one understood. As the night grew darker, the village divided. Some gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. "The river speaks only to those it chooses," one woman said, eyes wide with fear. "Nia has become part of it, part of its curse." Others shook their heads, unwilling to accept what had happened. "Nia was strong," they said. "She would not be taken so easily." But deep within, each person wondered, what is the river's secret? And now that it had called, what would happen next? As the village settled into a restless quiet, the question hung heavy in the air. What had become of Nia? Was she lost forever, or had she become something else, something more? The river held its secret, its dark truth locked beneath its surface, and no one dared to ask it again. From the moment Nia could walk, she was taught that the river was both a blessing and a curse. Her village whispered stories of spirits and powerful forces that lurked beneath its waters. "The river has eyes," the elders often said. "It watches, waiting for the right moment to claim what it is owed." Nia heard these stories, but didn't fear them like the others. Instead, she felt an undeniable pull toward the water. She watched it ripple with mystery, her heart racing whenever it swirled unnaturally. It seemed to speak to her, quiet, powerful, a presence beyond understanding. She grew. She questioned the limits of tradition. Her curiosity was too strong to ignore, and the river was too intriguing to avoid. Her grandmother, the village's spiritual guide, had always been the one to remind Nia of the river's importance. "It is not a friend, child," the old woman would say, her voice slow and heavy with age. "The river carries the blood of our ancestors. Its spirit is bound to our fate. It is wise but also unforgiving." The young girl listened, but her spirit was wild, unwilling to accept the unspoken rules that bound her people. "But grandmother, why should we fear what gives us life?" she asked one evening, her voice full of defiance. "Because it does not owe us its life. We owe it ours," the grandmother answered sternly. "You must never forget that." As Nia grew, the weight of her village's expectations settled heavily on her shoulders. Every day, the calls of the elders echoed in her ears. "The river demands respect," they would chant. "Our fate is written in its currents." But the more they spoke, the more Nia felt a growing need to break free. She saw the river not as a fearsome force, but as a bridge to something more, something beyond the village, beyond the traditions that seemed to cage her. She wanted to understand it, to know it, to find her own path. Her friends spoke of marriage, family, and staying within the bounds of the village. But for Nia, those dreams felt like chains. She couldn't ignore the river's call, the whisper that promised answers no one else dared to ask. It started with quiet conversations at the water's edge, murmuring questions to the river as though it could answer. "What are you hiding?" she would ask the swirling water, hoping for a glimpse of the truth. But the river remained silent, as it had for centuries. As Nia's questions deepened, so did the river's response. She began to speak to it in a voice no one else could hear, and at times she felt it speaking back. Her curiosity had grown into an obsession. She wasn't simply drawn to the river anymore. She felt as though she needed it, needed to understand its mysteries, to break the walls of silence that surrounded it. The elders noticed, their eyes narrowing whenever she approached. The tension was palpable, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Kofi, Nia's best friend, watched in silence. He had known Nia all his life, and he understood the fire that burned inside her. But he also understood the power of the river and the dangers that came with it. "You don't have to go to the river, Nia," he said one evening, his voice full of worry. "The elders are right. You know what they say about the river. You can't control it." She turned to him, frustration lining her face. "You don't understand, Kofi. The river isn't just some spirit to fear. It's a part of us. It holds the answers I need." Kofi stepped forward, his hand on her shoulder. "And what if those answers aren't what you expect? What if it takes you away like it has taken others?" But Nia just shook her head. "I need to know." As the days passed, the whispers from the elders grew louder. Their warnings carried weight, echoing through the village. "She speaks to the river," they murmured. "It is the prophecy. A girl will speak to the river and disappear, taken by its spirit." Nia's name became a shadow on everyone's lips, and the elders' gaze followed her every move. The ancient prophecy had always been a story, a cautionary tale told to children. But now it felt all too real. They feared that Nia was the one it had spoken of. The air grew heavy with dread, but Nia did not stop. She could feel the river pulling her deeper than ever before. The conflict between Nia and the elders reached a boiling point. "You have awakened something ancient," one of the elders said in a low voice. "Do you not understand what you are doing, girl?" "I'm not afraid of your stories," Nia snapped. "The river is not a curse. It is life. It is part of us. If I speak to it, I am doing nothing wrong." The elders, their faces tight with fear, exchanged glances. "You challenge the very forces that hold our world together," one said. "You will be punished." "I am not afraid of punishment," Nia replied, her voice fierce with determination. "I will find the truth. You have no power over that. It happened without warning." The river, which had always been calm, began to stir. The waters twisted in unnatural ways, churning as if something below was waking. The villagers gasped, eyes wide with terror. Nia watched, mesmerized. The river was speaking to her again, its voice louder now, insistent. She felt the pull in her chest, the call she could no longer ignore. The elders, fearful, crossed themselves and murmured prayers, but their words could not stop what was unfolding. The village was no longer united. Some sided with Nia, believing that the river could offer answers beyond the village's walls. They saw her as a pioneer, someone who would unlock the mysteries that had been hidden for generations. But others were afraid. "She has disturbed the river's peace," they whispered. "It will claim her." The divide deepened. Families argued in the streets. Neighbors turned away from each other. The once close community now trembled in uncertainty. Every night, the elders spoke of the prophecy. They believed that Nia's actions had begun the unraveling, that her defiance had stirred the ancient forces they had feared for so long. "The time has come," one elder said gravely, his face drawn and pale. "The river will take what it is owed." And as the village waited, the tension in the air thickened. The river's dark secrets were beginning to surface, and with them, Nia's fate. The villagers could not agree. Some said the river had claimed Nia's spirit, its depths swallowing her whole. Others whispered that she had been taken by the ancestors, called to join them beyond the veil. With each passing day, uncertainty spread like wildfire. Neighbors who once laughed together now exchanged cold stares, voices rising in heated arguments. "She's gone because she defied the river," one woman said, clutching her child to her chest. "The river never forgets." "No, she walks with the ancestors now," a man retorted, his face grim. "She is chosen." And so the village trembled, torn between fear and reverence. Trust eroded. There was no middle ground. The elders could do nothing but watch as old friendships began to crumble. Kofi's heart burned with frustration. He could not accept the fear that gripped the village. He could not sit idly by while Nia's fate was sealed by whispered legends. The stories that had once filled him with wonder now felt like chains holding them all prisoner. He stood in the middle of the village, his fists clenched at his sides. "I will find the truth," he declared, his voice steady. "Nia is not lost to us. She cannot be." The villagers exchanged uncertain glances, but no one offered to follow him. They feared the river too much. Kofi's heart was heavy, but his resolve only grew stronger. He would not allow fear to decide her fate. He would go to the river. He would search for answers, no matter the cost. Days passed, and Kofi made his way to the distant hills, to the shamans known for their knowledge of ancient curses. The journey was long, the air growing cooler as he ascended into the mountains. The shamans were not easy to find, but Kofi did not stop. Finally he found them. Their leader, an old woman with eyes like fire, welcomed him. "You seek what is not meant to be found," she warned. "I seek only the truth," Kofi replied. "What is the curse tied to the river?" The woman's face grew grim. "The river takes. It has always taken. When the time is right, it claims those who defy it. Your friend's spirit is with it now. No one escapes the river's pull." "But what if there's another way?" Kofi's voice was desperate. "What if there's a chance to bring her back?" The shaman's eyes softened, but she did not answer. Instead, she handed him a small token, a charm, saying only, "You may find what you seek, but it will cost you more than you know." Kofi returned to the village, his heart heavy with the weight of the shaman's words. But he could not give up. He sought out the village witch doctor, known for his ability to communicate with the spirits. The witch doctor was old, bent with age. His hands gnarled as though they had been shaped by the river itself. He sat in silence for a long time before speaking. "The river has claimed many souls," he said, his voice low and filled with dread. "But there is a prophecy, one that speaks of a pure heart. Only such a heart can challenge fate and free those taken by the river." Kofi leaned in, his breath catching. "What is this heart? How do I find it?" The witch doctor's eyes narrowed. "It is the heart of one who loves without hesitation, who gives all without expectation. But beware, boy, the path is filled with darkness, and not all who seek to fight the rivers will survive." Kofi did not stop. He traveled again, this time to an elderly storyteller who was known to weave tales of old. The woman's hut was hidden deep within the forest, away from prying eyes. She welcomed him with a knowing smile, as though she had been waiting for him. "I know why you've come," she said, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "The river has chosen. It always does." "Tell me what it means," Kofi pleaded. "I need to know what I can do." The old woman's eyes twinkled. "The river chooses those who defy it, but only love or sacrifice can break its hold. A heart that is willing to give everything, that is the key." Kofi clenched his fists. The stories were all the same. Love, sacrifice. But what if he didn't have what it took? What if the river had already claimed Nia forever? Kofi continued his search, refusing to give in to despair. He uncovered an old, hidden truth. The river had always taken those who spoke to it. Each generation, the river claimed its price, and no one had ever returned. Nia, in her curiosity, had awakened something ancient, something the village had long tried to forget. Kofi sat by the river one night, watching the water swirl around him. The secrets it held were too deep to ever fully understand. But he knew one thing. Nia's fate was bound to this curse. "I will not let her be lost," he whispered to the water, though he knew the river could not hear him. The village elder, who had always opposed the traditional beliefs, finally spoke out. "Nia is no spirit," he said boldly. This is no curse. She drowned. The river's currents are strong. This is no more than an accident. His words were met with scorn. The villagers who had believed in the prophecy grew angry, accusing the elder of undermining their faith. But his words lingered in Kofi's mind. Accident? Or is it something more? Kofi muttered, looking out at the river again. The elder's words were like a crack in the wall, one that made Kofi doubt everything he had learned. Could Nia truly have been taken so easily? The next day, a stranger arrived in the village. He spoke in riddles, his words dripping with mystery. He claimed to have seen Nia's spirit walking by the river's edge, her eyes wide and lost. She is not gone, the stranger said. The river's soul is not finished with her. It calls, and she will answer. Kofi felt a chill run down his spine. Who was this man? Was he truly a messenger, or something else entirely? His cryptic words held the weight of truth, but Kofi could not trust them fully. As Kofi's search grew deeper, tensions between him and the rival elder escalated. "You believe in ghosts, boy?" the elder scoffed. "You let your fears cloud your mind. You waste your time with prophecies and curses. The river claims nothing but fools." But Kofi's belief remained unshaken. "You may be right," he said quietly, "but if I don't try, I'll be a fool forever." The mysterious stranger's words became more urgent, more foreboding. "The river calls her," he warned, "but there is a price to be paid." But who was this man? Was he guiding Kofi to the truth, or manipulating him for his own purposes? Kofi could not know. His path was clouded, but his love for Nia burned brighter than any doubt. Kofi stood on the riverbank one evening, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. The voices of the shamans, the witch doctor, and the old woman swirled in his mind. Each one offered a different path, a different truth. But which one was real? In that moment, Kofi's doubts threatened to swallow him whole, but his love for Nia would not let him give up. "I will find a way," he whispered to the night. "I will bring her back." The stars hung high above the village, silent witnesses to Kofi's determination. He walked swiftly, his heart pounding, the weight of the night pressing down on him. The village was still, everyone waiting, watching, holding their breath as he made his way toward the river. The air felt thick, heavy with tension. It was as if the whole world was waiting for what would come next. Kofi's thoughts raced. He could not allow Nia's spirit to be lost forever. He would face the river, no matter the cost. Every step he took seemed to echo through the silence, and each one felt like a test of his resolve. He was alone in the darkness, yet it felt as though the very earth was watching him. When Kofi finally reached the river, it roared to life. The once calm waters churned violently, a powerful current surging and twisting as if disturbed by his presence. The moonlight reflected off the water, but it no longer seemed peaceful. It was dark, alive, and threatening. The sound of the river grew louder, filling the air with its violent energy. It felt like a warning, a challenge. Kofi's breath quickened, but he did not falter. He had come too far to turn back now. The water twisted, as though the river itself was aware of him, its deep currents responding to his defiance. The air tasted of salt and earth, and Kofi felt a chill run down his spine. He stepped forward, his resolve hardening with every beat of his heart. With one last breath, Kofi plunged into the water, the cold shock of it nearly stealing his breath away. The river fought him with every movement, pulling him down, pushing him away. His limbs screamed for him to stop, to give up, but he pressed on, his body propelled by love and desperation. He fought against the relentless current, each stroke taking him deeper into the darkness. His heart raced, but there was no turning back. He had to find her. He had to know the truth. In the depths, Kofi's eyes caught a glimmer. Naya's form, shimmering like a spirit, trapped in the river's grasp. She was no longer the girl he had known. Her body was translucent, glowing, faintly, bound by an invisible force. The river held her, its current pulling her deeper as if she was part of it now. Kofi's breath caught in his throat. Nia was not dead, but she was not alive either. She was something more, something beyond human. Her form seemed to merge with the water itself, like a spirit that could never be freed. He reached out, his hand trembling as it brushed against hers, but she felt so distant, so untouchable. His heart sank. This was not the Nia he had known. This was something else, something that could not be undone. Nia's voice echoed in Kofi's mind, though her lips did not move. "I was not taken," she whispered, her voice both distant and close. "I was chosen. The river has claimed me, and I am bound to it forever." Kofi's heart froze. "Chosen? What do you mean?" "I am its guardian now," she said, her form shimmering with an otherworldly light. "I protect its secrets, its power. The river is not just water. It is life. It is death. It is everything. I am part of it now, Kofi. I cannot return." Kofi felt a wave of grief and confusion wash over him. The girl he had loved was gone, and in her place stood something strange, something powerful. The river had taken her not as a victim, but as its keeper. Kofi's grip tightened around Nia's hand, desperation flooding his every movement. He pulled, but the river responded with fury. The water churned violently, swirling around him, pulling him away from Nia. The force was like nothing he had ever felt. It was as though the river itself was alive, fighting to keep her. The current twisted and turned, as if it had a will of its own. Waves crashed against Kofi's body, throwing him off balance. He fought back with all his strength, but the river grew stronger with each pull. The water roared louder, as if it knew Kofi's intent and was determined to stop him. He could feel the river's rage. It would not let him take her. Kofi's mind raced. His heart ached. He looked at Nia, her eyes now filled with a sadness that mirrored his own. He wanted to save her, to bring her back, but the truth hung heavy, in the air. The river had chosen her. She was its protector now, but Kofi could not accept it. "Please, Nia," he begged, his voice cracking. "Come back with me. You don't belong here. The river can't take you forever." Nia's eyes met his, but she said nothing. Her form seemed to pulse with the river's energy, as if it were speaking through her. She was beyond him now, beyond human reach. Kofi's heart shattered. He knew what he had to do, but the price would be unbearable. Could he risk angering the river, knowing it would never forgive him? Kofi's struggle became a battle of wills. The river fought back with an intensity that threatened to swallow him whole. It pushed against him, its current becoming an unstoppable force, pushing him further from Nia with each passing moment. Kofi's muscles burned. His strength was fading. He could not hold on much longer, but he would not give up. He could not. He would fight until his last breath. The water rose around him, crashing like a wave, trying to drag him into the depths. But Kofi refused to yield. He would not leave her to this fate. Time seemed to slow as Kofi looked at Nia one last time. Her eyes held the weight of centuries, the sorrow of the river itself. She was no longer the girl he had known. She was something else, something vast and eternal. "I love you," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Please, come back." But the river's power was too strong. Nia's form began to dissolve, her essence merging with the water, becoming one with the river's pulse. The river itself seemed to mourn as it pulled her deeper. Kofi's breath caught as he realized the truth. He could not fight the river. The choice had already been made. Nia was gone, and there was no turning back. He could not take her from the river without destroying himself. The decision weighed heavily on him, but there was nothing left to do. With a heart torn between love and duty, Kofi released her hand. He stepped back from the river, the force of it pulling Nia further away. The river quieted, its fury subsiding, as it reclaimed what was rightfully its own. Kofi stood on the bank, his body trembling, the weight of his choice settling like a stone in his chest. He had let her go. Kofi walks slowly back into the village, his steps heavy with the weight of what he has witnessed. The quiet sorrow in his eyes speaks of a journey that has left him altered, his heart torn between love and loss. The villagers watch in silence, sensing the change within him. He no longer carries the same hope he once did, but something new, something deeper fills the space where his youthful energy used to be. His shoulders slump under the burden of knowledge, yet there is strength in his every movement. He has seen the river's truth, the power, the sacrifice, and the duty that binds it. He has lost Nia, but in her place, he has gained an understanding that few others will ever possess. The village welcomes him, but there is no joy in his return. Only the quiet hum of mourning, the acknowledgement of what has been lost, and the realization that the world they knew will never be the same. The elders sit by the fire, the night air cool around them as they speak in low voices. Nia's name is now a story, passed from one generation to the next, a tale of bravery and sacrifice that stirs something deep within those who hear it. The villagers no longer speak of her disappearance with fear, but with reverence. They tell of how Nia became one with the river, how she gave up her life to protect the water that had once claimed her. The children sit wide-eyed by the fire, listening as the elders weave the legend. Nia's spirit is no longer seen as a tragedy, but a source of strength. She is the river's protector, a force of nature herself, guarding the mysteries of the water. The village mourns, yes, but they understand now. Nia's sacrifice was not a loss, it was a gift. The river now runs in her honor, a reminder of her undying commitment to the land and its people. The river, once feared as a dangerous force, is now revered. The villagers no longer look at it with suspicion or dread. They see it as a protector, Hisnek, ancient guardian of life and death. It is no longer just water. It is a living spirit, with its own will, its own needs, and its own power. The river's roar no longer terrifies the villagers, but humbles them. They know that it holds secrets beyond their understanding, and they approach it with respect. Each visit to the river is now marked with gratitude, not fear. The village gathers by its banks, offering prayers and thanks for the water that sustains them. They know that the river gives life, but it can also take it. It is a force to be honored, not fought. In the council hut, Kofi sits before the elders. His eyes are steady, his voice firm. The weight of the journey is evident in his demeanor, and the elders listen closely as he speaks. The river, Kofi begins, is not just a body of water. It is a living being, a guardian of all that we hold dear. Nia was chosen to protect it. She became part of it, a protector, just as it is part of us. The elders exchange glances, their faces thoughtful. Kofi's words carry weight now, a new wisdom born from experience. He speaks of the river's true role, how it holds the balance of life, how it nurtures and destroys in equal measure. It was never a curse, Kofi continues. It is a blessing, one we must learn to respect, not fear. The elders nod slowly. They see the truth in Kofi's eyes. The river's power has been misunderstood for too long. Through his words, they begin to see it as the living force it truly is. The elders, once wary of the river, now sit with a new understanding. They acknowledge its role not as a threat, but as a protector. They speak of Nia's sacrifice with reverence, honoring her transformation into the river's eternal guardian. This is how it has always been, one elder murmurs. The river does not take without reason. It gives and it takes. It is part of the circle of life, and we must learn to live with it, not against it. The village's relationship with the river has shifted. No longer is it an entity to be feared. It is now a partner in their survival. The river's mystery is accepted as part of the greater unknown, a force that will always be beyond their full understanding. The village begins to change. Their rituals, once focused on appeasing the river's wrath, now celebrate its power. New ceremonies are born, marking their gratitude for the river's protection and its ability to sustain life. Offerings of herbs, fruit, and songs are given by the river's banks, honoring the spirit of Nia, whose legacy still lingers in the waters. The villagers no longer approach the river with fear. Instead, they approach with respect, understanding that it holds wisdom they can only begin to grasp. They have learned the balance between life and death, power and submission. The river has become both their sustainer and their protector. Kofi has changed. He is no longer the young man who once sought to defy the river. Now, he stands as a mediator, bridging the ancient ways with a new understanding of the river. He walks between the old beliefs and the modern world, speaking with authority when he shares his wisdom. He has become a leader, a guide for the next generation, helping them navigate the spiritual world while remaining grounded in the present. His voice carries, not just with the weight of knowledge, but with the understanding that the old and new must coexist. He is the bridge, the one who sees both sides and helps others see them too. Kofi stands at the river's edge, staring out at the water that has taken so much from him. He sees the calm, flowing surface, but he knows the depths hold more. Secrets, power, and mysteries that can never be fully understood. He thinks of Naya, of the sacrifice she made, and the river's role in the world. It is a force that can't be tamed, but one that must be respected. The water flows gently now, its current calm, but Kofi knows that it is always moving, always changing, just as he has changed. He lowers his gaze, feeling the weight of the river's teachings, and lets out a long breath. Though Naya is gone, her legacy endures. Her story is passed down from one villager to the next, becoming part of the river's mythos. She is remembered not just as a girl who was lost, but as a woman who chose to protect the water, to protect the village. Her spirit is seen as an eternal force, watching over the people she once loved. The river now carries her name, a tribute to her sacrifice. Her memory lives on in every ritual, every prayer offered to the water. Nia's spirit is the river, and the river is Nia. The river's full mystery may never be known. The villagers now accept that some things are beyond their comprehension. They no longer seek to unlock every secret or challenge the river's power. They have learned to respect the silence it offers. It is a mystery that will always remain, a force too great for mere mortals to fully understand. And so, the river continues to flow, its power ever present, its secrets ever hidden. The village lives in harmony with it, knowing that some mysteries are meant to remain just that, mysteries. The river is both their protector and their enigma, a part of their world that they will never fully master, but will always revere. By the river, Kofi stands still, the water flowing endlessly before him. His eyes are distant, lost in thought. He wonders if Naya's choice was truly hers. Had she chosen to sacrifice herself, or had the river already chosen her path for her? His mind drifts back to the day of her disappearance, to the moments when she stood by the river's edge, speaking to it as though it were an old friend, a silent confidant. He feels a strange unease. Was it all fate, or was it her will, her strength? The river continues its endless journey, unmoved by his questions, yet holding the answers within its depths. The current whispers, its message clear. Some answers are not meant to be known. The villagers sit together, gathered in a circle, their faces somber as they reflect on Nia's sacrifice. The fire crackles beside them, but the warmth it offers is no match for the coldness that fills their hearts. They speak of fate, wondering aloud if their lives are truly their own to control. Is it fate? One asks, his voice shaking. Did Nia have a choice? Another shakes his head. Maybe the river chose her. Like the spirits, maybe the river's power guides us without us even knowing. The conversation lingers in the air, a question without an answer. The villagers feel the weight of their lives hanging by an invisible thread, pulled by forces beyond their understanding. The river, once feared, now feels like an invisible hand, shaping the course of their lives, pushing them toward an uncertain future. The elders speak slowly, their voices heavy with the knowledge of years lived in harmony with the land. They speak of sacrifice and of Nia's decision to speak to the river. One elder, her face etched with wisdom, explains that perhaps Nia's choice was not just her own. It was a test, she says. Fate does not ask us to understand. It asks us to sacrifice. Sometimes the only way to honor the spirits is to give ourselves to them. The villagers listen, their hearts heavy. They had thought Nia's choice to speak to the river was born of desperation. But now they see it as part of a greater plan, a test, a call to honor the unseen forces that guide them all. Her sacrifice becomes a lesson, teaching them that sometimes giving up what they hold dear is the only way to preserve the balance. Kofi wrestles with this question. Was his path already set before him, or did he have the power to change the course of events? He paces alone, away from the villagers, his mind in turmoil. His heart aches for Nia, but he wonders if there was anything he could have done to stop her fate from unfolding the way it did. Did he have the power to change it all? Or was everything from the very beginning meant to unfold in this way? The thought torments him. He feels the pull of destiny, but also the weight of his own actions. Every decision, every word spoken has consequences, but do they? Or are they simply parts of a greater plan that they cannot alter? As he stands at the river's edge once more, the current flows quietly, indifferent to his struggles. It knows the answer, but it will not reveal it. The villagers now look at fate with new eyes. They begin to understand that while they may not control all of their lives, their choices matter. Their beliefs, their actions, they shape the way. They respond to the unseen forces around them. The elders teach that while fate's course cannot be changed, how they walk within it is theirs to decide. The villagers, once fearful of the river, now see it as a guide, a force of nature that, while powerful and mysterious, does not control them. It is part of a greater cosmic balance, and they are a part of it too. Their choices, however small, are part of the larger tapestry of fate. In the quiet of the night, Kofi reflects on Nia's decision. He realizes that some choices, no matter how painful, must be made. She spoke to the river not because she had no other option, but because it was the only way to honor the greater truths. Her sacrifice wasn't a loss. It was a release. In letting go of herself, Nia had honored something far larger than her own life. She had given herself to the river, to the spirits, to the village. Kofi understands now that some choices are made not out of fear, but out of deep understanding of the balance between the self and the world. The elders gather one last time to speak of destiny. Their voices are soft but firm. The river has always flowed in the same way, one elder says. It is neither good nor evil, it simply is. Its course, like fate, is part of the greater balance. We cannot fight it, but we can choose how we walk beside it. The villagers listen, feeling the weight of these words. They understand now that fate is not something to be feared or controlled. It is simply a force to be respected, and the way they live within it is what matters most. Naya's choice, her sacrifice, has left a mark on the village that will never fade. Her decision to honor the river has become a part of the village's heart, a story told from one generation to the next. Her legacy is not just a lesson in sacrifice, but in understanding the greater forces that shape their lives. The villagers no longer view the river with fear or confusion. They see it as a part of their life, as Nia did, a protector, a guide, and a reminder that some things must simply be accepted, not controlled. Kofi stands at the river once again, the water flowing calmly before him. He knows that his journey is far from over. His understanding of fate, sacrifice, and free will has changed him. He is no longer the young man who sought to defy the river. He is now a man who understands its power, its role, and the lessons it teaches. His role has shifted. He is now a guide, someone who will help others walk the path between free will and destiny. He accepts this new path, knowing that while he cannot control fate, he can choose how to live within it. As Kofi stands at the river's edge, he hears the water whisper, a sound so soft, so gentle, that he almost doesn't hear it. But when he listens closely, he understands. The river speaks of a truth that can never be fully understood. Fate is neither fully in our hands nor completely beyond our reach. The balance lies somewhere in between, and with that the river continues to flow, its whispers fading into the night. Kofi takes one last breath, ready for the journey ahead, knowing that he is not alone in it. The river is with him and always will be.